Tonight, we take a look at the latest from Washington, including President Trump revisiting some conspiracy theories and the ongoing battle when it comes to taxes. Then, it's all about the law with our panel of attorneys. We take a look at the sexual harassment scandal and the legal implications, not only to the accused, but to the companies that they work for. Also, the latest on the Russia probe, how Michael Flynn's latest move is very telling. And could we be seeing some even more worrisome details coming to this White House? Good evening, everyone, and welcome to RFL. I'm Richard French. Our legal panel, they are standing by with a lot of issues to tackle, but we begin tonight at the White House. Now, their push for the GOP tax bill is coming up, but we begin in a place few dare to tread, inside one Donald Trump's head. Donald Trump here, as a private citizen and even as a candidate, had no problem when it came to trading in conspiracy theories and even personal attacks. He's even brought that trait now that he's in the Oval Office, including a pair of reports and a series of tweets that include some garbage that is verifiably false and others where the president is either lying now or has lied in the past. There's no two ways to look at it other than that. Let's bring in our senior political correspondent, Andrew Whitman, who's patrolling the low road. Andrew?
Well, Rich, a lot of this is going to feel more like a study hall conversation or cocktail party gossip than political news. But in 2017, where Donald Trump is involved, it's kind of hard to tell the difference. The Washington Post and the New York Times both out with pieces detailing Trump's comments to staff and friends, comments that either contradict himself or contradict the facts. Among them, that the Access Hollywood tape, the one where he talks about grabbing women by the where they should not be grabbed, that was fake, he says, even though Trump admitted last year it was real. The show's producers also confirm its authenticity. Trump still questions Barack Obama's birth certificate. He said the opposite on the campaign trail last year. He still insists he lost the popular vote because of voter fraud, despite no evidence and denials by officials in key states. Also, that the Mueller probe will end soon, perhaps by the end of the year, and will clear Trump of wrongdoing. No evidence of that either. He claims his low approval ratings are fake. They're not. He says he won districts in the 2016 election that he lost, and he insists he won 52% of the women's vote last year. He actually won just 42%. Now, if any of those claims are surprising, perhaps they shouldn't be. According to the Washington Post, Trump has already made 1,600 false or misleading claims as president. He's been in office 313 days. That's an average of more than 5 fibs a day as president of the United States. So it really shouldn't surprise anyone that Trump peddled in both conspiracy theories and ad hoc personal attacks on Twitter this morning, and also retweeted some posts that many are flagging as racist. His personal attacks targeted 2 executives at NBC News chairman Andy Lack making a vague comment about his past, and MSNBC president Phil Griffin because, well, he doesn't like their coverage. He dinged Matt Lauer, who was fired this morning for sexual misconduct, then also hit Joe Scarborough with some nebulous debunked conspiracy theories about his past. And Trump retweeted 3 videos from an ultra-right nationalist British anti-Muslim activist. We're not showing the videos he retweeted because they haven't been vetted. In fact, some have been shown to be false. They also include violent images. Even the British Prime Minister's office condemned the tweets and says that Trump was wrong to share them. So just another day in Trump land, Rich.
Yeah, and all this, as we'll get into in a minute, a very busy week ahead, but we're getting, even by this administration standards, into bizarre territory. I mean, I saw lawmakers on Capitol Hill where they didn't even know what to say about this. You had the Prime Minister of Great Britain saying that forget about being unhelpful, it was false and it was dangerous what the president was doing, once again, to issues in our own home country. But he's doing this at 2 in the morning without any vetting. And I think we've gotten to the point here where people are having a hard time, at least in most circles, taking what the president says to either be true or serious. And that raises a host of questions about the danger that poses going forward.
Well, there's a lot of danger both to the administration and to the country if you think about some of the more inflammatory tweets that he posted out, the ones that we didn't show. But also, he's got a lot of big lifting to do on his agenda, both in Congress and around the country. And, you know, it seems like this is incredibly bad timing for all of that, that it would tend to distract people from either the tax cut bill or perhaps it's intended to do that, to get as few eyeballs on what's, you know, the meat that's in the sausage as possible.
But to be clear, so nobody gets bogged down, God forbid, in the details, just the simple facts, and I know the president believes in fake news. Two simple things. He admitted at the end of the day what we all knew, which was the birther thing was just that, a hoax to get him publicity. After being proven false, he acknowledged as much, and he took credit for proving it. And then on the Access Hollywood tape that everybody, as you said, is verified to be accurate, tape plays. He admits the next day with chagrin that it happened, and he called it locker room talk. To say the two things that he said himself are now false, that nobody thinks are phony, I'm at a loss to understand. Forget the decency or indecency of it. Who he's trying to fool. Unless you believe the theory that he's just trying to change the subject for something bad coming down the pike.
There's that possibility. There's the possibility that he has somehow convinced himself that even the things he admitted to, he didn't really mean to admit. Or, you know, perhaps it's just the stream of consciousness president that so many people seem to think we have.
My God, the world we live in and the times we do. All right, now it's hard to see how the president's personal attacks and those conspiracy theories we just talked about help Republicans on Capitol Hill, and as Andrew said, an extremely pivotal window right now. They got to get their tax bill passed. But that is the reality that we find ourselves in Washington and America today. And for more on that and all of the things Trump, I spoke earlier today with ABC's political director, Rick Klein. Rick, I guess I can only start by saying it's only Wednesday, and I'm going to do the Reader's Digest version. The president has just brought out Pocahontas, as we all know, the setting and the timing of it. He went after the NFL players, and he's also apparently revisited the birtherism to the former president. Now he's gone with tweets with far-right and anti-Muslim rants. And like I said, it's only Wednesday, and there's so much more you would think that would be occupying the time, but this is madness.
It is, and it's been a dizzying day and a dizzying week already, and we're only halfway through it, Richard. And it's hard to even divine a strategy behind some of the things that are being said, because they're either so out of the realm of what's normal or offensive, but also, as you say, distracting to an agenda right now that's very serious about keeping the government open, not shutting it down, about cutting taxes and getting a legislative accomplishment. There are real issues, not to mention North Korea, the real things that Congress should be focused on right now, that Washington will be focused on right now, and a consequence of the president's behavior just in the immediate term is that you're led down a whole lot of paths that are pretty ugly.
To that end, you've had Theresa May, the Prime Minister in England, condemning the marks of the president, going to that far-right nationalist group out of Great Britain that put out some of the videos that he then retweeted. You've got Republicans on the Hill. You've seen this, Rick. They're at a loss for words to talk about what the president has said here. But my question is senior staff. I've heard General Kelly and others, and even Huckabee Sanders saying, hey, really, Twitter doesn't count. Isn't that akin to somebody like at FDR's staff saying, well, nobody really listens to those fireside chats, that's just radio? How much longer can they keep doing this?
Well, it doesn't work, and I think you have to consider anything that the president tweets as a presidential statement, because it's a statement by the president. Now, what I have heard from many of the allies of the White House is a refrain that says, don't focus on what he says, focus on what he does. And if you look at the agenda on health care or taxes, to name two, or foreign policy, Republicans and White House aides can feel a lot more comfortable. I think that, though, it strains, I think, the understanding of what the presidency is, because the presidency is about words, and these words do matter, and they have consequences. And I think that these are real and troubling issues that are being raised by the president, just in the most offhanded and often ham-handed way.
Rick, do you have any sense now, with almost a year of trying to figure out what's going on and who's pulling the levers? The Times story, as you probably saw, that apparently the president is seriously considering relitigating the debate over birtherism with President Obama, and also the authenticity of that Access Hollywood tape. Both stories, by the way, that he went on record as saying were either not true, or in the case of the Access Hollywood tape, he admitted his fault. Is somebody putting these ideas into his head that this would be good strategy? Is he divining this on his own at 2 in the morning? Where are these things coming from?
He is creating his own reality. He's also reinforcing that reality with friendly sources, whether that's family members or aides or media outlets that are feeding him information that confirms his worldview. And it has freed him, by all accounts, to talk openly about things that are utterly ridiculous. There is no evidence that's ever been produced, even by the president himself, that say that the Access Hollywood tape is not his voice and is not authentic. So why you'd want to go back there is one question, and whether you're able to is another question. But again, this president has become become used to being able to say things that are flatly not true and hope that they are made true by the very saying of them.
All right, as you said, it's a huge week in Washington. By all accounts, the tax bill is going to get out of committee, and then it's whether or not they can get to that magic number of 50. To that point, Rick, you know, from our region, in the metropolitan area, you've got every Republican, for the most part, against the plan for all the reasons we've talked about as it relates to deductions or lack thereof going forward. But how are they doing this kabuki dance where they're promising to put in triggers or backstops if the deficits get out of control, but at the same end, making no allowances for where the monies would come from and where the cuts would go? Also having people concerned about 13 million people per the CBO losing health insurance and all the math that we've discussed. Do they think, as it's currently constituted, they can get to 50 this way?
They do, and I think that there's been enough side deals that the momentum is on the way right now. As you know, there aren't really any Republican senators from the states that are impacted, the bluest of the blue states, the New Yorks and the New Jerseys and the Californias and the Illinois, to really put up a big fight on it like there were in the House. So I feel like they feel confident about their prospects right now. And I think, look, there's a lot of information out there, and a lot of it isn't getting covered because of the other news. I think people just need to figure out for themselves whether it's something they believe in as a policy perspective, whether they believe in it from their own household perspective. You mentioned the regional differences, and they are real in this bill, but this is a whole lot of stuff that's getting swallowed all at once.
And to my point, Rick, the more I think people digest it, I'm not just talking in the blue states, farm subsidies that go out of the way. I mean, even the deductions that a teacher can get if she's buying school supplies for her class. And beyond the geography, also the timeline. It's different what happens in the first 2 years than what will happen in years 20, 23, 24, all the way through 27. It would, if you believe the CBO, go from bad to worse. Has the party made a calculation that they'll swallow hard and worry about the immediate future and deal with the long term, I guess, when it comes up?
Yeah, and you mentioned some of these phase outs and the triggers, and I think past practice has shown that it's very unlikely that a future Congress is going to allow a big tax hike to happen or allow a tax cut to expire. They will find a reason, in all likelihood, the argument goes, to extend those things later on. So the budgetary tricks that are in place now, but I think it's a valid point that the corporate tax cut that is part of this package would be a permanent tax cut. Many of the individual cuts would actually phase away over time. That, I think, is an important thing. Some Republicans are uncomfortable with it, but that is the legislation as crafted.
Finally, Rick, there's a more immediate deadline, depending on how this works out, and that is we could have a government shutdown. And the comments the president put out with the Chuck and Nancy and then the 2 empty seats that he did in the presser, he's going to need some Democrats to keep the government's lights on, won't he?
Yeah, and functionally, yes. Look, Republicans control the House and the Senate. They could theoretically get the work done to keep the government open, even to pass a tax cut all by themselves. But functionally speaking, there's enough conservatives who will be uncomfortable about extending spending that you need Democrats to be at the table. President Trump knew that. The Republicans in Congress knew that, and they had a plan to try to at least delay some of the pain of a potential shutdown beyond the first of the year. That was blown out of the water when the president decided to tweet something yesterday about how the Democrats wanted amnesty for millions of illegal immigrants. So Democrats know what kind of cards that they hold here, and I think that's why you saw a strategic boycott of that meeting yesterday afternoon.
And Rick, it's only Wednesday. Thank you so much. Again, Rick Klein, ABC News Political Director.
Thank you.
And coming up next, new developments in the Russia probe, potentially big ones. Fired National Security Advisor Michael Flynn. He is now the focus, and now Flynn's legal team, they've cut ties with the White House attorneys. We're going to take a look at how pivotal Flynn could be here and what this all might mean for his old boss, the president.